Greetings and welcome to VLGA Connect for another week as we get towards the end of June and the halfway point of 2026. Can you believe it? And another big show lined up for you this week, bringing you up to date with what's happening across the local government sector in Victoria with Connect News very shortly. I'm going to be joined today by the Mayor of Loddon Shire in central North Victoria. That's Councillor Dan Straub, who joins us to talk about his council's advocacy priorities ahead of the state election. And he has some strong views on the Murray Darling Basin Plan review process and the impact of water buybacks on his community. Plus, today we'll be crossing to Canberra, where the annual National General Assembly has been underway this week. We'll find out more about what councils are talking about and deciding on, with some special guest correspondence led by Councillor Janet Pearce from Macedon Ranges and the board of the VLGA. That's all ahead on today's show, but let's get started with the latest Connect News. And we start Connect News this week with councillor conduct matters. In Wyndham City, Councillor Josh Gilligan has been suspended for 2 weeks, his second suspension in just 4 months. An independent arbiter found he misrepresented the council's position on the proposed redevelopment of RAAF base Point Cook, creating the impression the council had formally opposed residential development of the site when no such position had been adopted. Councillor Gilligan has also been ordered to apologise to a fellow councillor and to undertake training on the role of the mayor in making public statements. Over at Melton City Council, Councillor Ashley Vandenberg has received a 2-month suspension following a complaint lodged by 8 of her fellow councillors. An arbiter found she brought the council into disrepute through social media posts, accusing the administration of using artificial intelligence to monitor the community. Councillor Vandenberg has hit back hard, labelling the ruling, and I'm paraphrasing here, false and defamatory. She's announced plans for legal action and says she'll refer the arbiter to the Law Commission of Victoria. She's also confirmed she'll contest the state seat of Sydenham at the next election, running against Labor. Now to planning, and there's been tension between state and local government on a couple of fronts this week. The Victorian government has announced it's bypassing the city of Greater Geelong on 4 housing precincts, accusing the council of failing to submit a single precinct structure plan since 2023. But the council is pushing back, and firmly. Deputy Mayor Councillor Eddie Contell says that characterisation is simply not accurate, pointing to delays caused by state government approval processes, environmental assessments and slow responses to information requests. Greater Geelong says it has delivered 7 precinct structure plans over the past decade and remains committed to working with the state on housing delivery. Bayside City Council is taking a different fight to the courts, heading to the Supreme Court to compel Planning Minister Sonia Kilkenny to release ministerial briefs and advice behind a controversial planning amendment affecting 25 activity centres across 9 Melbourne council areas. The council says its freedom of information requests have been refused. Mayor Debbie Taylor-Haynes says the action is about the community's right to understand how decisions reshaping their neighbourhoods were made. The state government says it will challenge the application. The Victorian government's new local governance legislation is drawing criticism for what it doesn't do. The bill follows years of integrity concerns, most notably the anti-corruption watchdog's Operation Sandon report into Casey Council. While Local Government Minister Paul Hamer says the changes are vital to restoring public trust, the new laws are completely silent on capping developer donations. Any potential reform on that front has been deferred until 2028. Integrity experts describe that delay as hard to understand, given that strict donation caps were recently fast-tracked for state elections. 3 council by-elections are underway across the state. At Kingston City Council's Melaleuca ward, 13 candidates are contesting the postal ballot, a strong field that includes former Liberal member for Bass Brian Painter. That by-election was triggered by the resignation of Councillor Tessa Law. In the Latrobe City Council's Morwell River ward, 5 candidates are in the running, and in Wyndham City Council's Heathdale ward, 3 candidates have nominated for the position once held by Dr Jenny Barrera. Pippa Pace, Marcel Mahfood and Kim McAliney are the candidates. McElhaney, a former mayor and 11-year councillor, making her potential return one to watch. A couple of items on the sector leadership front for you now. Kingston City Council has extended the contract of CEO Peter Bean for a further 4 years with an additional 1-year option. Mr Bean has led the organisation since 2021. And congratulations to Cardinia Shire Councillor Colin Ross and Mildura's Mayor Councillor Ali Cupper, who've been elected to the VLGA board, 2 of 8 nominees for the 2 available positions. They'll begin their 3-year terms on the 1st of July. We also acknowledge outgoing VLGA President and Monash Councillor Dr Josh Fergus, who will conclude his term at that time. Thank you, Josh, for your contribution to the VLGA. Murrindindi Shire Council is calling on the state to extend free bushfire waste disposal beyond the current 30 June deadline. Many residents are still cleaning up from the January fires, and without an extension, disposal fees will jump to more than $362 per tonne from next week. Mayor Councillor Damien Gallagher put it simply, recovery doesn't happen to a government deadline. And finally, on a positive note, a conservation success story from the Mornington Peninsula. A partnership between the Shire, the state government and Victorian universities has seen the local southern brown bandicoot population more than triple since reintroduction. A breeding population is now established at the Briars Sanctuary. It's a great example of local government playing a meaningful role in restoring biodiversity. And a good note to end on for VLGA Connect News this week. For news across the local government sector, not just in Victoria but beyond, make sure you listen to the Local Government News Roundup podcast, sponsored by the VLGA and available wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, before my first guest, the Mayor of Loddon Shire, joins me in just a moment, I want to remind you that nominations for the 2026 Mary Rogers Awards for Women in Local Government are closing soon. The annual awards, delivered by the VLGA in partnership with the Victorian Government, celebrate and acknowledge the significant contributions and achievements of women councillors in local government. They also serve as a platform to promote and advocate for the advancement of gender equality and focus on supporting women's participation in local government and decision-making. This year, councillors and councils in Victoria have the opportunity to nominate across 4 award categories. Visit the VLGA website to find out more and to nominate now. Nominations are open until Friday the 3rd of July at 5 p.m. Well, next up on VLGA Connect, we're heading out to Loddon Shire, which covers nearly 6,700 square kilometres of central northern Victoria, from the goldfields near Inglewood and Wedderburn to the flat farming plains around Boort and Pyramid Hill, a region built on agriculture with an economic output of more than $1 billion a year, but a permanent population of just under 8,000 people. You can imagine the challenges and the pressures that brings on the local council. Dan Straub has been the mayor since 2021, a non-consecutive 4th term at the moment for Dan, who joins us for the first time on VLGA Connect. Welcome to the show, Councillor Straub.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for having me. I'm very privileged to have the opportunity.
And it's great to have you here. You were first elected to the council in the COVID year in 2020. And since then, you're now, as I said, in your 4th year as mayor. Did you think when you first put your hand up for council that you'd be leading the council as such a stalwart some years later?
No, when I was first elected, Chris, I did not think that I'd be at this point in time with coming up to the end of my 4th term this November. But it's been a great experience. We've got a great team in Loddon. We've got a great group of councillors over the last council term and this council term. And we've got some great staff too, with, all being led by Lincoln Fitzgerald, our CEO. And as you mentioned, we are a very big municipality with only a small population.
Yeah. And just noting, recently you've reappointed Lincoln to another term, which was great news. And can I just say your comms department punches above its weight too, Dan? We get great info flowing through from that team on a regular basis, which is much appreciated.
That's some good feedback. I think that communication, that transparency outward is very, very important. And we do what we can to make sure that we're getting our messaging out to community. And that also works well too with getting that messaging out to different levels of government like state and federal and any other sort of partnership neighbouring councils we work very closely with. So I think it's very important to have a good, strong communication streamline working outwards, but also we really pride our community on the communications inwards too. We have great, very close relationships with all of our very important community groups headed up by some great volunteers.
Yeah, that is a very important element, as you say. And all of this is even more important in a state election year. We're just a few months out now, and you've been updating your priorities ahead of this year's state election. If you had to name one thing that you want the state government to act on for Loddon before November, what would that be?
So we have passed our priorities document for the 2026 election, and on the top of that priorities list is rural childcare. That's one thing that Loddon has really struggled with. We do have one childcare facility that opened at the start of this year, but for the majority of our municipality, we're still a childcare desert, and that is really problematic with opportunities for people to work locally and have their children looked after prior to those sort of school years.
And that childcare desert goes beyond your borders too, isn't it? All of the councils out in that part of the state are dealing with the same issue. Are you working together perhaps on solutions for that problem?
There has been a lot of work done with our partnership councils. We've spoken about this for a number of years and advocated on this with our Murray River Group, for instance, which encumbers 6 council areas that Loddon is a very dedicated partner in. Also with our Loddon Campaspe Group, it has been an ongoing conversation. And like I said, we have had a little success with the announcement of a childcare facility in Wedderburn, but that still leaves, the vast majority of Loddon Shire in a predicament of no childcare provisions whatsoever.
Yeah, well, hopefully you can get some traction on that in this particular part of the political cycle. I imagine roads is on your list as well. You've got 4,700 kilometres. That's a massive amount to deal with for a council of your size. And of course, when you bring in the flood damage, a significant repair burden, are you getting the support you need, in your view, from state and federal government on that issue?
There's still a lot that we feel could be done in the way of roads and bridges too. So we've got a priority to continue our road and bridges funding. We do receive a number of grants, as other community or other municipalities do, for roads and bridges, but every year it seems to be sort of dwindling away with not keeping up with the cost of renewal of those assets, and that's a big problem. So roads and bridges is definitely high on our agenda to advocate for more funding to keep the renewal up. We won't be building any more roads, but we've still got a very significant road network that we need to maintain. And as mentioned, was very damaged coming out of the 2022 flood event. And we're still delivering that flood program, that rebuild of that flood program to today, halfway through 2026, and we're still not finished. It's just been a massive undertaking with the amount of damage, near on $30 million worth of road asset damaged from that flood alone. And it took a long time to really get that emergency disaster funding coming through the federal and the state government to filter into actually putting graders and trucks and people on the ground to get that rebuild underway, and we're still dealing with it now.
Yeah, that must be incredibly frustrating, the amount of time it takes for the support to come through and the red tape, the hurdles you need to jump to get all of that sorted. Just paint a bit of a picture for us of how frustrating that is.
It's frustrating to the point of the money came very quickly coming out of the federal government into the state. And the issues that we encountered were more releasing that disaster funding into the local government areas that needed. So we made a strong representation to state government to try and help streamline their frameworks to actually release that money without the burden of really strenuous red tape and a 3-tier assessment level that could be knocked back at any point, and then it's a start again with your application. So the the formula that we were sort of struggling with is paying that road repair forward and then putting in the reimbursement for
Mm,
the funding through the disaster flood recovery
yeah.
program. And that was never guaranteed it was going to be 100%. So we were just sort of working on our best outcomes to be reimbursed through that program and trying to advocate both to state and also to federal ministers to make this more streamlined and work for local governments who need these repairs sooner than later. We had a number of roads closed for months
Yeah.
with the hold up of funding arrangements and the inability for us to actually fund that without knowing whether we would be reimbursed or not.
Yeah, and not always easy for residents dealing with those issues to understand what's going on and why it's taking so long, is it? That's
And
yeah,
that's the most important thing. We
yeah,
need our road networks open for our residents
yeah,
and for our industries as well. We've got a lot of roads that circumnavigate our municipality that are very, very important for our trade and transport hubs too, to
yeah.
get those produce and those goods moving north, south, east, west.
Before we get off roads, are you confident as you do that restoration project that you've been able to build back to a point that if you have another flood event, it'll be able to withstand that event in a stronger way?
So that was another part that we argued strongly on was all of the funding arrangements were like for like. And we were lucky that we did advocate strongly for some betterment money. It was only small portion of betterment, but we were able to get some in. So there will be some areas that we've been able to build back better and put in that sort of resilience to withstand another event.
Hmm.
But the majority has just been like for like and is at the whim of damage in the future if there's another significant event. But where we have been able to advocate for betterment, we've actually delivered that fairly wisely, and we should see that take place whenever the next event may come.
Good. That's good news. Just on the financial sustainability issue, a council like yours, you've got rates income. I think it's less than $10 million a year, and you've got
Correct.
assets worth more than $500 million. And your long-term plan projects deficit budgets over the coming decade. That's not a great place to be in. How do you manage that longer-term sustainability issue with any sort of positivity?
It's hard to keep that positivity up when you're looking at figures such as those,
Mm,
Chris. And I know many municipalities are in the same situation. One thing that we have to really manage well is our asset base here in Loddon. We do have a very small rate base. It is. Yeah, around the 9 million, not including municipal charge and fees and charges. But we're looking at spending, for instance, our recently adopted budget, 13 million on our capital works program. Majority of that is roads. So we do manage our money well, but with a small rate base, being rate capped, we're got those issues moving forward. Loddon is actually the lowest rates in the state. And if we even raised our rates by 11% overnight, we would still be the lowest rate in the state.
right.
That's something that we're dealing with. And we're trying to manage expectation, for one, from community, the burden of a lot of cost shifting that we have to then pay forward. And we also understand that a lot of our community might not have the ability to pay an increased rate. So we're rate capped, we're only increasing with CPI. We deliver a waste service at cost neutral. So we've had to increase our waste charge by 15% just to stay cost neutral with the burden of extra fuel costs. So
Mm,
that will be a bit of a hit, but we've tried to manage that well. And if you look across all residents that have a waste service, it's around about $1.30 a week increase. So we've tried to manage that well, but it is very difficult in this current climate and this current economic sort of situation to deliver surpluses.
yeah.
We have delivered that operating deficit of around about 6 million, but that's something that we as council are really in tune to making those figures look better and savings where we can, so we can get back to delivering balanced budgets. And that's something that we've put a lot of pressure on the team in Loddon to be working on that, to put those reviews in front of council so we can make more informed decisions on where we can actually rein these blowouts in.
Yeah, and of course, you can only cut so much while you're still delivering the services that you need to. Has an application for a rate increase above the cap been part of your consideration thus far?
It's been talked about. I wouldn't say we're at any point of considering anything yet, but it's definitely part of the conversation we're having. We're in the middle of doing a lot of service reviews at the moment to help with that cost burden. That's not going to be the be all and end all of the problem, but just really streamlining and identifying where there's gaps that are costing money is a big start before we actually move forward with a rate variation conversation into the future. But definitely, Chris, it's something that Loddon has identified in conversations very recently.
Yeah. Okay. Before we wrap up, I want to talk about a broader issue that I know you're well across as a former chair of the Murray River Group of Councils, the Murray Darling Basin Plan review. This is playing out at the moment. A lot of councils having a say about this and concerned about whether the appropriate changes are being made to that plan. What's your view on where that sits at the moment?
So this has been a conversation Loddon's been involved with for many, many years now. The Murray River Group of Councils formed coming up 20 years ago, directly around the issues of Murray Darling Basin, Murray catchment and irrigation problems that we first seen with all the way back to unbundling when they detached water from land. And this is something that our partnership councils have been really leading since those early 2000s. The Murray River Group, mentioned before, 6 council partnerships stretching from Moira, Campaspe, Gunawarra, Loddon, Swan Hill and Mildura. So we've got the full length of the Murray River captured there. And our platform on the Murray Darling Basin plan has always been by community, driven by the people it impacts the most. And one of the things that we've stated in our submissions recently on Murray River Group's behalf, but also on Loddon's behalf as an individual council, is bring it back to community. They threw out the socio-economic neutrality test out of that plan and out of that review because they couldn't get that to stack up, but continued to purchase water out of the consumptive pool at the detriment of the farming communities, which has had that flow-on effect. And we've seen industry closures along the Murray in certain places. Only recently over at Strathmerton, with a closure of a cheese processing facility and the loss of 300 odd jobs. Now, they're the direct impacts that we link to the Murray Darling Basin Plan and its failures in protecting community and protecting the farming industry as they, take more water out of the consumptive pool for the environment. We've never ever argued that the environment doesn't need water, but we need it in a balanced format to deliver it where it's needed. The plan's telling us that the environment has benefited from the water that they've already purchased back off landholders, and more water won't make any significant benefits to where we're at now, yet there's still this ploy to take more out of that consumptive pool away from not just irrigators, but away from town water as well. And that's having huge issues across our small communities. So we've been at the forefront in saying no more water buybacks. We want to deliver this water in a responsible way, and we want community and industry to be at the forefront of the next decision-making process. So the review's happening now. We've all had a chance to submit on all of the issues mentioned plus more. And we'll be working very closely with the Murray Darling Basin Association into the future to get some really positive outcomes for community and for the irrigators that really need that lifeline of water to grow the crops, to grow the red meat and the fibre that we all need to survive.
Dan, I have to say, that's one of the clearest explanations of the issue that I think I've heard. Well done. Why do you think that argument is not getting through? It seems like it's not getting through to the people who are making the decisions here.
Yeah, and there's a few different a few different opinions on that. I really think that it's become more of a political decision than it should be. It's taken the science out of it, and now it's just a political tennis match. And that's no good for the basin plan itself. It's no good for community, and it's at the detriment of what this plan was set out to do. And I think that's one of how I would summarize it. It's become a political hot potato, throwing that back and forward without really listening to the scientific evidence, and also the communities that are actually showing a direct impact. You know, we've had industries that have said that we've got no confidence in the water market in Victoria anymore. We're going to pack up and move interstate where they've got more reliability in the market, and that takes away those jobs, those families, those kids in our schools down through our rural areas of northern Victoria.
Yeah, that's a great shame if that is indeed what is going to continue happening. Dan, let's try and finish on a positive. You're a local farmer. You've said that the rural lifestyle and farming culture is one of the great strengths of Loddon Shire. What gives you confidence for the future of your community?
So Loddon is 70% agriculture, and there is a lot of positivities to be had in the rural sectors at the moment. Obviously, just talking about issues with irrigation water, but there's more that we can look to the future and feel happy and feel excited about. We've got a lot of innovation happening through the farming sector. Loddon's farming sector alone is worth about $1 billion back to the economic stimulus of the region. And that's really going hand in how those smaller communities see themselves too. If farmers are making money, the rest of the community is making money, our local businesses are making money, and we've got the population base to keep our schools opened and people in work. So I think that employment part of ag is one of the most exciting things. The innovation in technology. We've seen a lot of farming enterprises really become the most productive they've probably ever been through some of the savings that we can identify through the likes of irrigation infrastructure, where we're putting in pipes and risers and we're getting away from flood irrigation. Definitely has shown a positive outlook. There's nothing wrong with flood irrigation, but the innovation and the technology is just seeing those returns back to the back pocket even more, with some of those small changes to how we actually grow our produce, whether it be cropping, red meat, and also the fibre industry too is always up and down. But I'd say that across Loddon, we're in a fairly strong position on all fronts, and we've got the industry to support that. So that's a positive thing coming out of the farming sector. We do have to keep the conversation alive around our road networks that the farmers really benefit from. They need to get their produce in and out, and that's something that Loddon's identified and weighted highly. We do have some issues there from the state government, though, in their maintenance of their road network that does let the whole show down. But the positivities, I think, is really coming through with people want to come to Loddon. They want to experience the farming culture, agricultural culture. Now, our community vision talks on a thriving, welcoming community. It's a great place to live, a great place to work, and the opportunity to create great experiences that keep people living here, wanting to build houses and move to Loddon, but also keep people visiting our area year after year for events. And the agricultural sector has really taken that on board and is really showcasing what great produce we supply to the rest of the nation and overseas. And people are really liking that experience. And that's, I think, one of the big benefits that the ag sector across Loddon has seen in the last few years as one of those positivities.
Terrific answer to the question of positivity. You're right across your topic, Dan. Well done. Great advocate for your community. You're clearly enjoying the role of community leader.
I do really enjoy the role. I've got some very strong values that I hold close, and giving back, community, respect, and family at the top are those four key values that I bring to the table every day. And I wake up excited to get amongst the community and actually work with them on a one-to-one basis and deliver things that are at their uh, held closely within their hearts to make that a better place for them to live. And one of my key drivers is our next generation. Our youth of tomorrow is what we have to invest in today. And that's what really drives me along. And I really do enjoy the role. And I do really enjoy the company of my community and my fellow colleagues. It's a great place to be.
Excellent. Well, we've enjoyed having you on VLGA Connect. Thank you so much for being generous with your time and for outlining all those issues for us. Best of luck with your advocacy efforts in the months ahead as we head down towards the state election.
Thanks, Chris. I really appreciate the time, and we really do love the podcast, and look forward to some great future conversations in the coming months and weeks leading up to the state election.
Excellent. Great to have you on the show. That's Councillor Dan Straub, the Mayor of Loddon Shire Council, here on VLGA Connect. Well, we don't often get to go out of the state to find out what's happening in local government circles, but today we're going live to Canberra, where I have it on good authority that it's just a little bit chilly. And I've got two members of the VLGA board joining me who've been there this week at the National General Assembly. Great to welcome in Councillor Janet Pearce from Macedon Ranges Shire and Vice President of the VLGA. Hello, Janet.
Hello, Chris. Thanks for inviting us.
Lovely to have you here. And alongside you there is Councillor Damien Gallagher, the Mayor of Murray Shire and also a member of the VLGA board. Damien, hello.
Morning, Chris.
Good to have you here. We wanted to get a sense of how it's been this week. I think you've been there pretty much all week for a range of discussions and debate. What's your immediate takeaway on this year's NGA, Janet?
Well, it's been a very busy week. It always is. Lots of information, lots of connections. I think what always comes out of this is that there's 538 councils around Australia that all join in. And although we're very different, the different states, whether it's remote, regional, rural, metro, the themes that come through about the challenges and opportunities that all unites us together, and I think we have a much stronger voice. So yeah, it's been a really good week.
We'll talk about some of those recurring themes in a moment. I noticed you mentioned there, and I've seen it in the materials, 538 councils in Australia, they're now saying. They used to say 537. So I've got a little mission now. I've got to try and find out why that number's changed. Perhaps they've just recounted and realised there was one that they were missing. Damien, you've been there since Monday at least, I know. The forum that sort of started off the event focusing on regional issues you were part of, how was that?
Exceptional forum. So a wonderful opportunity to get together with regional councils and rural councils from right across the country, Chris. And as Janet said, a lot of those really recurring themes that people experience around financial sustainability challenges, disaster management fatigue, which is an opportunity that I had to present to the group. And also on that first day, the inaugural urban conference. So urban councils, municipalities from across the country were able to come together and share their a common experience as well. So a wonderful collaboration again right across the entire sector.
I've been reporting on some of the news coming out of the event for the Local Government News Roundup, and I did note that the Federal Local Government Minister, Christy McBain, spoke to that event that you were just talking about, Damien, and said a few things that were positive for support for regional councils, but wouldn't be drawn on that ongoing request for the 1% share of Commonwealth tax revenue, as I understand it.
That's right. So the Minister was available, first of all, at the Australian Council of Local Government session with the Local Government Awards on the Monday evening, and again was at every opportunity. I think councillors and mayors, CEOs from right across the sector have called for that 1% of GDP being dedicated to local government. And again, you're right. On both sides of the aisle, there's not a lot of opportunity to be drawn there, but we will continue. We'll continue to argue for a larger pie to be able to support, all the wonderful work that the community of councils do right across the country.
Yeah, Janet, the sector's been nothing if not consistent on that issue. I know you've been around for quite a while, and that's been a call for those financial assistance grants to be upped in that way for some time.
Yeah, because the history, looking back 30 years ago, it was 1%, and now it's under 0.5% over that 30 years time. And I think that especially untied grants, financial assistance grants. So I think also that gives the opportunity for councils to plan ahead, to have long-term financial stability, and because we know there's that renewal gap, the assets, state of the assets report showing us all that, and that's the type of thing that we need to all plan before. But the untied has always been very strong as well.
Yeah, I noticed the resolution of all councils calling for that fairer share of funding. What sort of positivity or optimism is there that that message is ever going to get through?
I think we'll just continue to tell the story, Chris. It's a long running argument. I think there's a really strong case to be able to support councils to do the powerful work that they do. Nevertheless, in the meantime, there was some really great presentations across the week about how to work with the Commonwealth to seek that funding, to be able to seek the Commonwealth support. So I think one of the themes yesterday of the main General Assembly was ask not what the Commonwealth can do for you, but ask what you can do for the Commonwealth in terms of seeking those fundings and trying to align local needs with those of the ambitions of the government.
Yeah, that partnerships and did come through a lot, a very strong theme. Just seeing local government in a partnership with 3 tiers, and not just a sort of a leverage for for the government to think that we're just going to be on the ground doing the work. They're workers. We're actually in a partnership, and I think that's an important point.
Yeah, we have to look at it that way. They hold the purse strings, so you have to work out how you can actually work more effectively with those other levels of government. Another big report and I will come back to that disaster fatigue issue in a moment, Damien, but another big report that's been released looks at the assets that local government is managing across the country. Some staggering numbers in that report, which really brings home, I guess, the criticality of dealing with the infrastructure burden on a countrywide basis.
And I think one of the really telling numbers that comes out of the State of the Assets report is that recurring theme of local government looking after around about the 30% of the state's infrastructure, of the country's infrastructure, and doing so with about 3% of government revenue. So it's a massive impost. I mean, we're a small rural council in Murray Shire, and we look after $500 million worth of assets. So being able to support the maintenance renewal of those assets is critical. It's fundamental, really, to what we do in this sector.
As you tell those stories in a setting like we are at the moment, it really comes home, doesn't it, that you're not alone here, and everyone's got a similar story to tell, Janet.
Yes, it is. And I think that the stories, when people get up and share those stories, it makes you realise the impact all over Australia, and it does unite us. I think if we even just looked at the billions in projection on the asset renewal, we do have to act on it. And I think it does give us power and strength, and it does make everybody come together. But the stories are definitely, we had disability and inclusion and accessibility, and some of, as the presentations occurred, people got up, councillors were getting up and sharing personal stories, and you could see the passion coming out. So we can see that we're all there with the passion for local government, and we're all there to do the best that we can for our communities.
It's terrific, isn't it? So, Damien, you spoke on that panel about disaster recovery fatigue, which is a real issue as many municipalities pretty much lurch from one crisis to another in the current climate that we have here in Australia. Take us inside that discussion and how you felt that message was received.
Some wonderful feedback about the presentation, and I think a lot of
That's
people were able to resonate with some of the themes. And I think fundamentally, Chris, the idea that it's not just roads, rates, and rubbish, but it's also response, relief, recovery, resilience. It's core business for council. And so, being able to share that story, I mean, Murray in particular, and I think right across central Victoria, with multiple floods, 1 in 100 year flood events year on year, 1 in 200 year events that are just happening more and more often, and more intense events. We've had landslips, we've had seismic events, so we've got 8 concurrent DRFA events that we're looking at, and talked about some of the challenges and the fatigue that applies to councils and dealing with DRFA claims, and providing that evidence to be able to support what are some really fundamental requirements. We talked about betterment and how important it is to make good investments with our reparation of assets rather than doing like-for-like repairs again and again after different events. And then we spoke about volunteer fatigue and how our community-led recovery has been a wonderful approach that's been happening right across fire-affected areas in Victoria. But there is almost an assumption of infinite capacity of volunteers, and there's no off-ramp. And we're 6 months on from some of those January fires and looking to support some of those community members who continue to turn up. And then finally, there was the community fatigue about dealing with agencies and having to retell and recount and relive the experience to be able to seek the support that they require. So some really wonderful experience that we were able to share, and some really helpful feedback.
Yeah.
And very few parts of the country are unaffected by these types of events, Janet. So
absolutely, the stories far and wide. So there was, I think it was a disaster fatigue was a very good topic. Title for the topic. But so there was many others as well, just in fact, just about climate concerns, and renewable transition came up, housing, workforce shortages, skills-based shortages, and retention in councils, accessibility, talking about not disability, but all abilities, community. There used to be previously, we'd had a lot of motions because there was over 250 motions that, was on communications and telecommunications. We're seeing a little bit more of the AI, tech, IT stuff come in on motions and assistance there. So a couple on the incivility and some social media assistance in one of the presentations. So yes, I think it was well-rounded. A lot of the topics we're seeing continually every year, but it just enforces we can't give up. We have to keep united.
Yes, lots of issues, as you say. Is there anything that's come up that surprised you that you weren't expecting, either of you?
I don't think so. I think it was just the reinforcement of some recurring themes. I think, Chris, we had a demographer talk about the relative experience of rural and regional areas compared with, for example, our urban friends, and the impact on mental health, for example, and how acutely the mental health impacts our rural communities. So there was a number of insights. I know, Janet, you were very impressed by Michael Theo, the young actor with autism, sharing his experience as somebody trying to find their way through life with that experience, and that was really quite a touching presentation about him and his experience of his parents, and having to support him through his experience.
Yeah, and I also think that the Governor General, Sam Mostyn, Honourable Sam Mostyn, was fantastic. Always a great way to start off, and when she talks about caring, kindness, respect, I think that resonated throughout. That's we're dealing at that grassroots level, and that's how we need to keep moving forward with those sort of values in mind.
So some people question the value of these events and, having everyone come together. I think it's valuable on a number of fronts, but one of those fronts is the fact that through conversations like these, through lots of media coverage, it is an opportunity to highlight the issues, the very real and timely issues that local government's dealing with. Would you agree that's one of the big benefits of coming together in this way?
Yes, absolutely. we know we all have our representation throughout the states, and we have voice there, but making the strength is in the united. We're all going to be different, but the amount that is, if we focus on what we're united on, it's very clear. So, and we just have to keep doing it, I think.
Yeah,
that's right. And between sessions, there's those incidental conversations that you're able to have with your colleagues and people right across the sector, and you can see how they're cracking the same nut that you're experiencing in your space. So really important to have those really good conversations. And it's not a great time, in my experience, to be able to try and secure the time of a minister and have some of those really powerful conversations. But you might get a couple of moments here or there to
because that is the opportunity as well, being able to meet ministers and
absolutely, where you can. Look, I've been to many of these. I know how full on the week can be. I'm sure you're both looking forward to a bit of a rest after your week in Canberra, and I really appreciate you both coming on to give us some of those insights out of NGA.
Thanks for the opportunity, Chris.
Thanks for letting us join you.
Oh, you're very, very welcome, and welcome anytime. That's Janet Pearce from Macedon Ranges Shire and the Vice President of the VLGA, and Damien Gallagher, the Mayor of Murrumbidgee Shire, also from the VLGA Board, joining us today from Canberra, where the National General Assembly is wrapping up for 2026. Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of VLGA Connect. We have much more for you in the coming weeks. I hope you can join us again. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or your podcast player to make sure you don't miss future episodes of VLGA Connect. Thanks for your company this week. Until next time, bye for now.